Also,
it sounds like you need some hydros. And by the way, we're live now.
Fuck, I need a lot of those, dude. I am struggling.
really glad Martin went live before I had a few off the camera things I want to say. Thanks a lot, jackass.
That's what the intro's for, right? We can talk over that. Nobody's gonna.
Jesus Christ.
Oh fuck!
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs at the Club, brought to you by Snake River Stampede Whiskey. This is our instant reaction to top 5 Portland State versus Idaho in the Kibbe Dome in front of a, let's say, generous attendance number of 7,040. Idaho winning 45-6, breaking the 4-game losing streak. I am your host, Dallas Hammer, joined today by brave, bold Brian Marceau.
Good to be here, guys. Even better. Not that there's any reason for people to know this, but in the hashtag OnlyTubs Discord, patreon.com/Tubs at the Club to support the show. During this week, there was some anxiety about whether we can continue to call Portland State top 5. And 1, no shit, we can. Like, why the hell could we not? 2, Idaho with a convincing win that we're going to talk about. So top 5 Portland State, they stay top 5. The joke that predates Eck. So back when Idaho sucked, it was going to survive no matter what. But if you were curious, it's going to survive for sure, which is a long way of saying good to be here, guys.
And last but not least, the man in Moscow himself, producer redacted, Marten Heemstra. Martin, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's nice to be able to talk about a win and listen to a win instead of after these last however many fucking weeks it was in a row.
5.
And
yeah,
5. 5 games. Yeah.
Those man, that losing streak sure felt like months, not weeks. But Martin, for those that are only listening, your brick wall has disappeared, and it's throwing me off a little bit. I gotta be honest.
Settings. I don't know why StreamYard has decided to be like, "Fuck you, you don't get a fucking background this week." But I am still too lazy to want to clean up my apartment right now, and I don't want people seeing it, so I'm sitting at a weird angle, so you get the weird shirt tag sitting against the wall, and Michaela
I'm glad
Friends
you
jersey and a
specified that, Martin, because right when you said
jersey.
that, like I was about to say, Martin, your camera's pointing to the ceiling. Like, do you clean the ceiling regularly, or is this a side effect of those hydros you have that somehow keep you high a month afterward?
For those who couldn't hear that, Martin just shook his pill bottle in front of the camera. I do love the wooden slats in your ceiling, Martin. It's a very interesting design choice. Obviously, you had a ton to do with that. Anyways, guys, it's Tubbs After Dark. Tubbs well after dark. You might hear it. I am I am not super healthy at the moment, so I'm going to be leaning on Brian and Martin to help carry the wood this week. But gentlemen, before we get into the recap of this game, we got to get to Around the Bar, brought to us by our friends at Hughes River Expeditions. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, do not look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Brian, you're getting called out in the chat for asking where the Tubbs mood light is, so if you want to try to get that prepped, I want to tell the folks about how they can enjoy a multi-day trip down the middle fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. And guys, there's also the special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. You might have missed that last summer, but you won't miss it next time, will you? Martin's got the Tubbs light in the little bottom left corner of our screen. Guys, we're getting back to Hughes River, though. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes. HRE will handle everything else. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now, 406-540-4450, or check them out at hughesriver.com.
Man, I'm getting called out in the comments section nonstop. First, we got Andy acknowledging that I don't have my Tubbs light. I got to work on some logistics for that. And then we got Andrew saying, like, Brian, we're disappointing amount of duster. Okay. All right. You know what? Fixed it. Had a bunch of noise in the background while I moved my chair. You're welcome, Dallas. But anyway, the back to Jesus Christ, Martin. Back to you.
Martin's got the thunder sticks. Love it. In the comment section, Madison McCord picking out what I was dropping there. Speaking of carrying the wood, that quarterback one of ours is useful to have back out there, huh? Guys, this was a game that Portland State started off getting a field goal, kind of held up the Idaho offense on the first drive as Idaho missed a 47-yard field goal that wasn't particularly close. But then Eli Cummings catches a screen pass from Joshua Wood, breaks it off for 64 yards. I think he ran closer to 120 on that based on just the left-right cuts he was making all over the field. Felt like he broke about 7 tackles on his way to the end zone there. And then from there, it was pretty much all over. It was all Idaho from there on out. Joshua Wood with 4 touchdown passes in the first half. Didn't get a lot of playing time or stats put up in the second because Idaho put the game away so quickly. Rocco Koch at the beginning of the third quarter hit Jake Cox with a 42-yard jump pass, made it 35-6. Eli Cummings broke off another touchdown run shortly after that. And then Idaho went to the backups from there on out on the way to a 45-6 victory. So, Martin, your immediate thoughts. What went well tonight for the Vandals?
It took a little bit of time, but it was like for me, I think it was nice to see the offense not like finally shit the bed and just only scored 20 points. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was almost ready to text you too that like they should fire Lenahan because they can't fucking score after the first drive, but Matt kind of shut that up pretty quickly for me. I'm just gonna say offense is just it's the offense for me. It just went well. It's kind of generic, but just it felt that was like the perfect. It was good to finally get that kind of thing after like against a top 5 opponent.
Yeah, 42 points, far and away the best the Vandals have done this year. Obviously, there was 33 points against Northern Colorado in a game that they should have allowed Northern Colorado to put up more than 50 if Noco hadn't taken the foot off the gas at the end there. A couple other games that Vandals have had a decent looking offense, but far and away the best output of the season so far. Brian, what did you think went well?
Well, first, to hit the broad point Martin brought up, it wasn't just the fact of putting points on the board. Like Idaho had a clearly different offensive strategy this game, both through the pass and on the ground, than in pretty much any other game the entire season. Now, hey, everyone had collective PTSD when early on Wood had three very close deep strikes and went 0 for 3. There was a wheel route to Eli, and then two. I don't know if both deep strikes were to Emerson Cortez Menjivar or whoever it was in the first quarter. But it looked initially like the parade of fades was how Idaho was going to be more aggressive.
Tub stat check. Marquand McCraney, wheel route to Elisha Cummings, then another fade to ECM.
Okay, so once those three were there, everyone in the arena, it seemed, was like, oh God. But from then on, it was completely different. And Idaho dominated from that point on. So credit to Idaho. Thomas Ford talked in the post game after Eastern that play calling was something Idaho needed to essentially go back to the drawing board on. And as we have in the comment section, in the presser, Ford said he had more of a hand in the offensive game plan this week. Good. If obviously, look, every coach is different in whether they are the literal play caller or whether they're more going to give outsourced direction and then supervise with the output. Ford seems to be a little bit more of the latter, but that's great news that Thomas Ford said things got to change, and this is how we're going to change them, because offensively, this was the type of game plan I have been wanting to see out of Idaho the entire season, where it seemed the game, it was a balanced attack for sure. So not trying to ignore that, but it was Joshua Wood centric first. And then the running game was supportive of Joshua Wood. Now, of course, Joshua Wood rushes as well. That was what I've been wanting to see the entire season, which is basically acknowledging who's your best player. Well, the play calling needs to follow who the best player is. And we definitely saw that tonight. Through the air, Joshua Wood was pretty damn efficient. Overall, 15 to 22 for 4 touchdowns, 259 yards, 0 picks. And then on the ground, 3 carries for 24 yards. But the other thing, well, actually, no, I'm going to hit there, Dallas, so that you can hit there. You'll know the thing I didn't touch on, so you can get there pretty easy. But the receiving room also was pretty damn spread out. 5 different players caught touchdown passes. And we've talked about how good Marquand McCraney has looked as of late. He had 2 catches for 35 yards, one of which was a touchdown. But another dude who looks like he might be making a step is Nolan McWilliams. 3 catches for 50 yards, 0 touchdowns. But if you gun to my head, I would have told you he had more than 3 catches, because he looked like he had no trouble getting open, which of course, hey, this is top 5 Penn State, so we understand how to temper some things. But
we're playing Penn State,
top 5 Portland State. Jesus Christ, guys. Okay, this was top 5 Portland State. So we understand how to temper some, results that we see. But to me, what I care about is how we got there, because that's what could generalize into future games. And the receiving room looked pretty damn good. And hey, Ryan Jesiaro did not play. He's been the top pass catcher for Idaho the entire season, and still the receivers look good today. So that's where I'm going to go, Dallas. You have, of course, another end of the offense that we got to talk about that mattered today.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, I got to be honest, I don't know exactly where you were thinking I was going to go with this, but I wanted to hit on listening to the post-game show, driving home. Thomas Ford, we've already talked about it. Thomas Ford took a more involved role in the game plan this week, but he specifically said, I thought we needed to simplify things for our guys. Instead of focusing on all of these things that we think we can do well across all of the playbook, let's simplify things down to some concepts that we think we're going to execute really well and focus on just doing the things that we are going to be great at. And to me, that's what this offense looked like. Yes, there are obviously some big plays on the sheet here. Jake Cox again with the 42-yard touchdown pass. Noah West Bronco had a 40-plus yard touchdown catch. Marquand McCraney's was a 24-yarder that was honestly one of the best catches I've seen out of Vandal make. It was a beautiful toe tap in the end zone. Shout out James TA there. But for me, a lot of this, we saw the Joshua Wood read option a little bit, and the 3 carries was pretty low for him. We saw a lot of pass distribution to a bunch of dudes, and a lot of it was the short to intermediate throws, a lot of crossing routes, a lot of things over the middle, just to try to keep the drives moving, rather than, again, where we seem to do that thing where Idaho gets the 1st and 10 and then want to see 3rd and 10 immediately because you take 2 shots to the end zone when you're 30 to 40 yards away from it. Didn't see that as much tonight, and that was huge because it changes so much about this offense, Brian. Eli Cummings and Nate Thomas averaged 8.1 yards a carry and 5.9 yards a carry, respectively, on a year that they're both averaging under 4 and have not looked, the way that we had hoped that these 2 seniors that have been very good Vandals in the past have shown up. Now, having Joshua Wood back is obviously a huge change for the offense, and it opens up so many things. But we saw, again, we saw the Vandal offense do things that we have been wanting them to do for a while. Brian, you've talked about getting Joshua Wood out of the pocket, letting him just go out there and make plays. I've talked about specifically adapt some of that air raid shit, man. It's meant to be short throws that are easy for a quarterback to pick out, and that's what we saw today. It was a lot of short routes that just kept things moving. 208 Fish in the comments, thank you, Andy. O-line made some holes. Offensive line looked really good. Joshua Wood did not take a sack. Now Soriotini took 2 sacks with the backups, but no sacks by the first string offense today. Now, again, this is Portland State. They are one of the worst FCS teams out there, and Bruce Barnum looks like a guy who checked out 3 years ago when he was applying for the Idaho State job. But man, if you watch this game, if you've been doom and gloom like we have the last handful of weeks, yes, there's obviously the quality of opponent that matters, but this was everything I've wanted to see from the Vandals, Brian and Marten, both. They didn't screw up the end of the first half, which they've done in I don't know how many fucking games this year.
Well, and even the longer passes Idaho had, this is buttressing the point you made about Wood was most of his throws minus early, those 3 deep strikes. Take those out. It was short to intermediate stuff for the most part. And then even when Idaho had their long passes, like, hey, Eli Cummings, 60+ yard touchdown, that was a screen pass where Eli Cummings made something out of nothing that better get on SportsCenter. Or hey, there was the trick play that was that to no West Bronco?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay. That type of deep strike where it's not to the sideline over dude's shoulder. Joshua Wood's really good at those. Or the other one of the other longer passes from Wood is, hey, he extended the play, and when guys are coming back and Wood's doing what Ford describes in the press conference as backyard football, those are different types of throws. He's good at those. So Idaho overwhelmingly, like I said, they relied on what Joshua Wood did well. Now it does help too that Eli Cummings, who had almost just under 200 all-purpose yards receiving and rushing. Thomas Ford described him as finally at 100%, no longer on a pitch count. So, hey, having QB1 back matters, and then we know Art's gone. So Art Williams and Eli essentially looked like 1A as the running backs to start the season. Having the guy we can back at 100% matters for Idaho too. So look, what went well offensively? Well, virtually everything, because it's goddamn Portland State. But it's not just that it went well against Portland State, Dallas. It to me was indicative of change in strategy, change in paradigm that absolutely could matter against other teams.
Mm-hmm. That's the big takeaway from me, right? And we'll get to that as we're gonna cover a couple other things before we get to our broad takeaways. But what we saw was promising. Yes, it was Portland State. They had their 4th game this year that they didn't score a touchdown, which, hey, props to the defense for keeping them out of the end zone. You play who you play. Defense needed a performance like that. Really just did not let Portland State do much. But for me, guys, I do want to touch on the defense because they have been up and down, I'd say, this season. But we got to see a lot more guys play. Specifically, I wanted to shout out Isaiah Bivens, walk-on, who's been essentially scout team up until this week. Ford said that in the post game with Dennis Patchen. And it was like, okay, hey, look, he's practicing really hard. He's looking pretty good. He's a redshirt freshman. He's a big kid, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's also a broadcasting major, so shout out. But what happens? He goes out there and he gets a pick. And now the entire Vandal team got a personal foul for the entire team. I'm not kidding. It was at least 30 players that just sprinted onto the field to celebrate with him. Like, for me, that was the big moment of, holy shit, this coaching staff is playing other guys. Yes, it's Portland State as the game is already well out of reach, but the coaching staff is playing other guys that we haven't seen get opportunities this year. They're making the most of them, and the coaching staff and the players are excited and getting up. And we haven't seen that in, honestly, we weren't seeing that a lot in the wins, but this felt to me, guys, like a change in the mindset and mentality of Vandal football. I know Thomas Ford has been saying in every single press conference, the team hasn't given up. The team hasn't given up. The mentality is still there. They're still here ready to work. They still believe in ourselves. But this was the first time we saw it. Like, Thomas Ford was dancing with the players during a song break in a just commercial timeout. Absolutely insane to me to see. Again, yes, it is Portland State, but completely different vibes coming off of the Vandals this game.
Well, that, with Ford, that was persistent throughout the game, and you and I have talked off camera about this quite a bit through the start of the season. Look, I remember Ford from the Eck years, and I remember him being an energetic, excited-looking dude, and that was part of why I was. Look, I will be open about this for the rest of my life. I wanted Ford at Idaho the second I knew Eck was gone. And part of it's because I'd remembered his unit being good. I remembered him looking like a guy who could motivate people and a guy who's energetic, a guy who checked as many boxes as we could, at that time to get the job done. For most of the season, I don't know how to describe this. I'm not trying to interpret what's inside his mind because I don't know. He looked different on the sideline. He was not engaging with players at nearly the same level I remember from 2 previous years. Today, he looked like the guy from a couple years ago where, hey, Dallas, you talked about that, the moment on the sideline, but this week he looked like he was congratulating players a lot more. Looked like he was purposely making sure that he was getting into it with players in a good way, giving feedback when they come back off the field a lot. I honestly thought I saw more of that today than I'd seen in all the other home games combined, watching him on the sideline. So I don't know if some of that is he also thought, hey, that's something I got to change too. But that looked different. And again, it's hard to pull out some of the stuff that matters against Portland State or stuff that happened just because it was Portland State. But to me, what that looked like it translated to is like a guy who is more relaxed, therefore a guy who is actually more in command of what he was doing, which to me, nothing but good news.
Yeah, as Ross Warren says in the comment section, Ford was new and trying to be what he thought a head coach should be. Now he's being who he really is. I love to see it. That might sound reductionist, but Ross hit that right on the head. That's exactly what that felt like, was Thomas Ford in his first 7 games figuring out how to be a head coach again. He'd been a head coach at Simon Fraser, completely different thing than even FCS football, much less FBS football. It felt like he was trying to fit himself into the role, and this week really just felt like a different vibe from this team for, again, almost all 4 quarters. They came out a little bit flat on that first drive, and then Portland State moved down the field, kicked the field goal. There was a moment there where things didn't feel great, but shortly after that, it felt like, okay, hey, this is what I expected a Thomas Ford team to be. He's down there having fun with the dudes on the sidelines, and they're obviously enjoying this. Guys, before we get to anything negative, what I want to get to is something that is not negative. Thank you, Brian. Pacific Custom Sportswear, guys, vandalgear.com. They're Vandal owned and operated. They do custom screen printing and embroidery right here. I say right here in Spokane, Washington. They've been in business for 25 plus years. They work with U of I. Martin's got it up on the screen. Again, if you want some Fighting Taters gear, they've got it. You want some Home Sweet Dome stuff, you want the beautiful Big Sky Conference 50-year throwback stuff, they've got it. Ton of Vandal stuff. But for whatever reason, if you don't want Vandal stuff, if you need them to do, hey, we gotta print up a bunch of shirts for a charity event we're doing, or our business, we just want some t-shirts, they can do all of that for you too. Anything you can really think of: shirts, shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats. Honestly, I'm guessing if you asked real nice, Jeff would probably figure out a way to print up some socks for you. vandalgear.com, best place to find Vandal gear. It is also some of the cheapest Vandal gear, which is not a bad thing. You have other stores that we aren't going to mention here that are selling stuff for $50 to $60 a t-shirt. And man, you're going to spend way less than that on a nicer sweatshirt from vandalgear.com. Brian, you are still just dying over
Sorry,
there.
dude. Thank God I already cashed that check from Jeff. Here's a word from our sponsor. I promise they don't suck, guys. But sorry, dude. That's where I was. But
hey, when I'm asked to free ball an ad read, this is what happens. I need that Hughes River. Give me the fucking script that I'm only going to screw up 4 or 5 times. Yeah, if I've got to free ball it, man, it's just we're just flopping everywhere here.
All right, okay.
Anyways,
I'll
gentlemen,
myself together someday, guys.
What went poorly, if anything, for the Vandals? Martin, you're up first.
I think I'm gonna state the obvious and just say it's another missed field goal. I think that's kind of the big thing for me. That's the one thing I'll say is, like, it sucks to have to try and find something in a game that, I mean, it wasn't perfect by any means, but to find something, I'm just like, it's field goals, and it sucks that it happens, but like it's the big thing for me.
So I want to hit Christy Mayer in the comment section very quickly. Because again, guys, I'm sick as fucking hell right now. I am wearing the special Subdue shirt that was made by Pacific Custom Sportswear exclusively for patrons of Tubs at the Club. I mean, you gotta get in with us here. Reach out to Christy if you love these shirts. Martin's got it on too. This is the nicest and most comfortable shirt I own. So sorry, Jeff. Probably should have mentioned that in the ad read, but this is what happens late at night. Brian, sorry. Go ahead.
Just because I didn't get to say anything about the defensive effort before, I want to preface this saying you give up 2 field goals. That means your overall effort was good across the board. Like, you don't get there. Or it means you played Portland State and had a good effort, which was what happened, oddly enough, today. So, hey, what did not go well? The 3-man fronts, guys. It was more of an issue early on. And some of the 3-man fronts, it still feels like Court Dennison trying to find the right ingredients to balance the against most teams ineffective pass rush. Now, Idaho had 7 TFLs. They also had multiple sacks this game, so easily the best showing from the D line, which Portland State. So, but hey, got to acknowledge the guys did go out and produce. You play who you play, and Idaho's D line was pretty damn stout for this game. However, the 3-man fronts that Idaho goes to, just got to go away, man. It just has to go away, because we had a good outing from the DBs today, probably because Portland State is not insignificant there. But even with one of the better outings, when Idaho gets no pressure on the quarterback, the quarterback's going to get a completion. Like, the play will extend long enough that it's going to happen. And we had moments early before Idaho completely separated themselves, because it did take a minute. Now, again, Idaho had 28 points, up like 28-3 or something like that at halftime. So it was pretty much clear, how Idaho's doing fine. But early on, Portland State had a 1st and 20 they converted on that had everyone hitting that PTSD of that 2nd and 32 that Eastern turned into an eventual touchdown. And that's all to say, legitimately, when Idaho plays their 3-man fronts, they're not playing tighter on the receivers by any means with the extra guy out there. So legitimately, the Vandals are a better team defensively on 3rd and 3 than they are on 3rd and 15, which sounds like preposterous to say, but it's absolutely the lived experience I have. So for the love of God, against teams who are far superior passing teams than Portland State, teams like NAU this week, teams like UC Davis in a couple weeks, teams like Idaho State to close the season, please tell me those 3-man fronts are going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the 4-man front, it's just simpler for the guys. You know your role a little bit better, a little bit easier to know which gaps you've got in the run game. It's simpler in many aspects. You can certainly make it not simpler than a 3-man front, but man, it time and time again we see if Idaho goes with 4 down linemen, it just seems to work significantly better. For me, we've talked about it. The comment section has definitely talked about it. The defense started out great, 3 and out. Idaho gets the ball. They go to the fade offense on 1st and 10 from the 30 and kick a long field goal that is missed, that I think most of us knew was probably going to get missed. I think that's right at the edge of Owen Adams' range. And then what happens is Portland State goes down the field and takes 8 minutes off the clock to kick a field goal. Thank hell they kicked a field goal there, but they converted a 4th down there. They converted that 3rd and 13 you mentioned, Brian. Like, that was not great, and it was in the middle of, again, the environment in the dome was dead. The players did not seem super hyped. It felt like every other game this season, or most every other game this season, where Idaho has just kind of come out flat. Thankfully, we got that Joshua Wood read option, and then the screen pass to Eli that broke the game open, destroyed everything, and completely erased those first 13 minutes. But those first 13 minutes for me were the low point of the game, feeling like, wow, this is happening again. You're coming out flat against Portland State. They're moving the ball. You missed a field goal. Like, everything that could be going wrong is. 208 Fish in the comment section. 3-man front equals Crotzer getting doubled. That's 100%. It's what happens every single time. I'm terrified about that next weekend with Ty Pennington in town. We're going to Flagstaff, and Ty Pennington is going to have a chance to just pick apart the 8 dudes in coverage. Hopefully there's some pressure. Hopefully there's 4-man fronts on every single play. We'll see what happens there. Gentlemen, we are a half hour in. We've got one more ad read to go. Brian, if you would do us the honors of telling us what you're drinking tonight, we will get to our players of the game and then our takeaways and how we're going to apply them to the rest of the season.
I love Madison recording the comment section, acknowledging Dallas saying he wanted. Sorry, I just had to assume Eli listened to the preview pod when you guys said you wanted to be done seeing them and get the young guys in there. Okay. Now, I re-listened to that, and I probably should have given a little bit of pushback in the moment. But you know what? We miss stuff live sometimes because we have multiple things going on, like this alleged ad read I'm supposed to get to. If you're celebrating a big win, or how about any goddamn win right now? Because that's where we're at. Reach for a Snake River Stampede Canadian whiskey. They got 2 options. You have your entry-level Stampede, or you have your small batch 1915. The small batch 1915, that's kind of their special occasion whiskey. It's aged an extra 2 years. But both, look, you can't go wrong either way. You're looking at $26 for the Stampede, $39 for the 1915. Those are 2 fantastic buys in an economic sense, but additionally, those are the 2 best Canadian whiskeys available in the state of Idaho. Both are 3-grain whiskeys, 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley. Both have double barrel finishes. They both start in ex-bourbon. The Stampede finishes in Oloroso sherry casks. The 1915 finishes in ex-Canadian rye whiskey casks. You cannot go wrong either way. I know that's what I'm doing later tonight. Grab yourself a Snake River.
Martin, your player of tonight's game, or today's game, I guess.
Offensive player, defensive player, just overall. What are we doing here?
Either way, I was just going to kind of let you take the wheel and drive us into that brick wall if you wanted.
I'm going to take Mr. Obvious and say Joshua Woods. Having him back, the offense just was totally different, and it didn't seem like it. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Mr. Obvious here.
Joshua Wood, singular. Yeah, I mean, that's who I'm going to go with. I mean, look, obviously there's other candidates. If I were to try to be creative here, you'd probably go Eli Cummings. His 165 total, all-purpose
Ryan, you're
yards.
killing me here.
What? My apologies.
You might be stepping on my dick.
My bad, dude. Okay. Eli Cummings, Jesus Christ. 165 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns. But no, Joshua Wood was the story of this game. And I don't know how you go with anyone else but him. When Idaho does what they did today, again, make things easy for Joshua Wood, it makes things easier for other players on the team. And then suddenly Idaho suddenly has a competent offense. And that's where some of your margin for error can come against those better teams. But no, Joshua Wood to me is the brain dead pick. Everyone in the Kibbe Dome and everyone who watched on TV knew immediately, like, man, what this team is, when this team is, one, making the right play calls, but two, when they've got the right guy under center for QB because he's healthy, it just completely changes what this football team can be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the clear and obvious answer here is the quarterback. Quarterback comes back, and all of a sudden, everything is healed for at least one Saturday. It does help that you were playing the Little Sisters of the Poor, but I'm going to go with Eli Cummings because I thought, yes, the impact a running back has on the game is a little bit different than the quarterback. The quarterback gets to touch the ball on virtually every play. But man, Eli Cummings was huge. That screen pass that he made a lot out of that. Now it would have gone for a first down, I think, regardless. But after about 12 yards, he did all the rest of the work to get that to the end zone. He had a handful of first downs. Some from he drew a pass interference. It was 100% pass interference. He got shoved into the third row of the student section. Then a couple third downs that he converted. Like, it just felt like anytime Idaho needed a play, it was going to be Joshua Wood or it was going to be Eli Cummings. And hey, hand up, I said I wanted to see a lot more of the young guys. So what happens? Eli Cummings and Nate Thomas get 15 carries and get 100+ yards between the two of them and look great. Eli getting into the passing game was incredible. I think that's what I've been wanting to see for honestly this whole season. He led the team in both receptions, technically, because there are 2 guys with 4. And then with 100 yards, yes, most of it came on the screen pass, but that is the offense that I think you can make happen here. You can pass the ball. You can get it to your playmakers in space. And look what happens. Yes, it was Portland State, but getting the ball to the playmakers in space worked rather than sending Eli right between the guards every single time like Paul Petrino used to do. So defensively, I feel like we could have gone probably with a bunch of different guys. A lot of different guys had some tackles for losses, a couple picks. Jamel Blendman also had the other pick there. Had a couple pass breakups as well. Dylan Lane looked really good. Like, there were a bunch of guys that were all over the field. Great performances all across the crew. But guys, where I want to pivot this is to kind of the takeaways we can take from this. We've talked a little bit about the offense and, again, using the short throws, keeping it in Joshua Wood's hands, moving things from where they were to something that might actually be sustainable, especially coming to the Friday night Halloween game in Flagstaff in just a couple days. Marten, anything you wanted to take away from this is like, wow, I hope the Vandals keep doing this because this might actually fucking work.
No, I mean, I'll just go with whatever you guys say. I don't want to try and oversimplify and confuse myself.
Fair enough. Brian, anything you want to take away from tonight's game?
Well, yeah, I mean, we brought it up earlier offensively that the overall output was not really what I cared about here because Portland State is bad, guys. If you did not watch this game, I've never seen a coach look like he gives less of a shit about what's going on there. Like, even at the end of the game, one of the Portland State, I don't know what position, I think it was linebacker.
I felt it was a defensive lineman.
Okay. Goes down. It looked like he was in some pretty damn serious pain. Like, it took a minute for the trainers to be able to get the guy to even reposition himself enough for them to see what was going on. Thomas Ford went and checked out on how that guy was doing. Bruce Barnum was fucking dicking around. I half wish Barnum had his phone out so that he at least would have been doing something while he was dicking around on the sideline. I'm not trying to speculate.
That man just does not. He just looks like he has no fucks to give. It's like
he looks like he's trying to get
fired, and they will not fire him.
Yeah, no, he looks like he's trying to get fired so he can go be an OC somewhere fun, or so he can just say, you know what, I'm done working. Like, he just
He just wants that Bobby. He wants that Bobby Houck little like rehabilitation thing, and then he's just waiting for that Montana call now.
Yeah, but anyway, that was honestly repulsive. We make fun of Portland State, but if I were a Portland State player, I would be pretty damn pissed. If I were a parent of a Portland State player, I'd be pretty goddamn pissed about what we saw on the sideline. But to the actual point we give a shit about, because we don't give a shit about Portland State. That's done. It was how did Idaho get its production? What looked different? And it looks like, what Thomas Ford is saying, both offensively and defensively. One, it looks like he's exerting more control over this program right now. And if this is more the stylistically what we see from here on, then I think we're just going to say first year coach took a minute. But you know what? If Idaho really needed to look like shit like they did the back-to-back weeks, Eastern, UNC and Eastern, to get to the point we're at today, I'm okay with that. Long term, it's a step in the right direction. If that's what we truly needed for Ford to, again, it looks like he is really, really putting the brakes or changing direction both offensively and defensively in these last couple weeks. And he talked about at the end of the Eastern game, play calling has to be better. This was a very different set of play calls, not just through the air. Joshua Wood, a lot of the rushing attack, it looked much more diverse. It looked a lot more unpredictable, and it also looked like it was to the relative strength of the guys on the field too. Eli's a good running back, but he's not a guy who, let's just say, he's not a guy who North Dakota State would say, you know what, we're gonna run you A gap all day. I just think other places, I think he has different strengths, and I think Idaho, let him run to the outside a little bit more today. Like that matters for a guy like Eli Cummings. So that's my big takeaway is if Idaho used this week to truly get it right, especially on the offensive side of the ball, then please temper expectation, guys, because I don't think we should now go from, hey, we suck to, oh, we're back to a top 15 team. I think that Idaho needs to, pick up a couple wins before we get too excited about what's going on. But that looked much more to me like a Vandal team that is going to be dangerous, or a Vandal team that if they keep the right guys and hit a couple home runs in the offseason, next year we could be looking at the team producing the way we believed they would be this year. So yeah, the big thing is, Dallas, you and I had both talked about it. There'd just been some coaching stuff that was that Idaho just hadn't been hitting home runs on. And it felt today like Thomas Ford took a huge step forward this week and this game. If that's the case, that's a huge deal for Idaho. And after this game, I'm not going to overreact to this, but that NAU game before today, Dallas, you probably felt like me. You probably did not feel ecstatic about going to Flagstaff when Idaho is doing what they were offensively. I feel different right now. Like, not going to talk about NAU because we're going to record on Tuesday because that's a Friday game. So we're going to go a little bit early next week. But my big takeaway from this, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I saw a lot of really good stuff. I saw a lot of stuff that I don't know why we didn't see it earlier in the year, but it's here. And if this is who Idaho is from now to the end of the season, then they're going to be dangerous. And first year head coach off a 4-game losing streak, if he uses that 4-game losing streak to figure things out and now suddenly it's a different team, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I can hit some things in the comment section. Madison McCord again. Yeah, winning. Obviously, I would love to take that forward from this game. Peter Soath saying, I think the big takeaway was the rebuilt confidence with today's win. This will go a long way for the rest of the season. That's what my focus is. Man, again, I know it's Portland State. I know that you're not going to beat anybody else left on the schedule 42-6. You're not going to be at a point where you're putting Joshua Wood on the sideline midway through the third quarter. You're not going to see that again this season. But you can take the fun that was had here. Again, we've already litigated all of this, but Thomas Ford was having fun out there. The players were having fun out there. Like the Dome felt like it had more energy than homecoming, which also helps when you're up 30 and not losing in an embarrassing fashion to Northern Colorado. But you bring that energy combined with the obvious simplification of the offense. Brian, you nailed it on the head there. It did not feel like, okay, they're running out this formation. It's going to be a run through this gap or that gap on this side or that. It was like, oh, I wonder what the hell's going to happen here, because it just felt different, because they were running a lot of the same concepts out of different formations and out of necessity of trying to do good things consistently rather than, throw everything possible. And I think that's something that happens with, any coach does it, but I think it happens with young coaches, specifically guys that don't have a ton of experience, like our coaching staff does. You start losing and you start trying to overcoach to get your way out of it. And it felt like this week was the, hey, you know what? Fuck it. We have been on this huge losing streak. The quarterback's back. Let's get back to basics. Let's get back to the foundations of this team and see what happens. And it worked. Yes, again, it's Portland State. I think Brian, Marten, and I could have probably played for some snaps in that game, and still Idaho would have won that game by 35. But you can bring that forward to NAU, to UC Davis, to the schools that are going to make this difficult on Idaho. I just want to see that on the defensive side as well. There's some things I still don't love. Again, we've talked about the 3-man front. I don't love the 3 safety look. Does not seem to work very well either. I think it's Court Dennison just throwing everything he possibly can to see what's going to work. But eventually it gets to a point where, hey, we have critiqued Matt Linehan pretty heavily in his first 6-7 games as an offensive coordinator. This was by far his best showing. And it was, yeah, Thomas Ford definitely, admitted he had more hands in the game plan this week, but he brought things back to being a little bit more simple. This is still a college game. This is not professionals being played to be the best in the world at the sport. It's a bunch of college kids at an FCS school that unfortunately right now is not a top 25 team. So you do the math there. This is probably somewhere between the, 100th to 175th, the best team in the country. You're not going to have these guys executing at an NFL level. Just not going to happen. But if the defense can simplify things a little bit, just the way that the offense did, I feel a little bit better about Ty Pennington and NAU, Jordan Cook and ISU. I feel a little bit better about those offenses when 2 weeks ago I would have been saying, yeah, those are both going to put up 50 points on the Idaho, and it's not going to matter. Peyton Manning in his prime could be down here running this offense, and it's not going to matter because the defense is going to give up a 40-yard play on every single possession.
Yeah, so I want to piggyback just what you said, in the same sense that, I spent more time today talking about how I thought this was part of this was, Thomas Ford taking control, which, again, I don't think there's any interpretation you can take but that from how things changed. 100% you are correct. Matt Linehan had easily his best game, both output and, the process to get in there. So, okay, credit to Linehan. Dallas I do want to bring up special teams too, because that is another area where Idaho has been trying to experiment with different things. We got much better output out of Cameron Pope. First off, he was pretty damn well rested because Cameron Pope didn't head out to punts until late into the third quarter. I'm okay with that. But punting wise, Cameron Pope's averaging over 40 yards a punt today. Felt like we haven't had that out of an Idaho punter for a long time. Keeping the field position the right way was obviously part of this game. And most of the punting didn't take place until Idaho pulled their starters. Another thing that went well, Idaho did not play Joshua Wood into that fourth quarter. They got him out. You got to see a little bit of Sawyer Teeney. You got to see a little bit more of the depth pieces. Carlos Matheny had some rushes to Dallas, but Idaho kicked Portland State's ass and got key players out, including offensive linemen as well. If Idaho didn't pull their starters, they could have hung more than 50 on Portland State. But I don't give a shit because the guys who got pulled did not get hurt. Defensively, I think Dennison has to decide which hill this team is going to die on. Because until he decides, they're just going to die on every hill. And to me, it feels like the hill to die on is the DBs are the ones who need the most support, but not by having another DB who needs more support. The way to support the DBs in the pass game is whatever pressure they can get on the quarterback. Because you can see, like, hey, Caleb Ricks has been a kind of lone bright spot for the most part in secondary, but there you guys can see, like, there's a cushion. So the biggest deal is to make the quarterback uncomfortable, make him miss some reads, make him try to get him to flush out of the pocket, and see if you can force some mistakes that way. But I do not think that this Idaho team is going to correct by, let's say, saying the line needs more support by having, an extra person to protect against the pass, to buy them more time. Like that Idaho doesn't have an Alex Gubner who's going to completely annihilate O-lines and manufacture openings for other people. That's just how it's going to be. This defense is not going to be like a top 25, top 15 level FCS defense this year. They do not have the manpower for that right now. So I think Idaho needs to just accept, look, we got to go with what's going to give us our best chance to get enough stops. They're not going to get every stop, but they just need to get enough stops. They need to get key stops. And I just feel like it's brain dead. If you have people feeling like Idaho's in worse position on 3rd and 15 than they are on 3rd and 4, whatever you're doing on 3rd and 15, rip that page out of the playbook.
And I mean, I'm on the same spot here, Brian. You go back to Jamel Blenman's pick, or excuse me, I know he prefers Deuce Blenman's pick. Isaiah King was blitzed on that play and hurried the quarterback into making a terrible decision. Weird how that works. Look, Deuce Blenman's been picked on a little bit this year. I think a lot of the DBs have been picked on a little bit this year. Look at how much better that goes for them when the quarterback is pressured into making a snap decision that he's not going to get correct every single time. It's John Chiave Saga Pulatelli and not Jack. I think it's Jack, his older brother. That's the Cal quarterback. Make him do something stupid. And sure enough, it worked. They ended up going to Tyrese Smith, their backup quarterback, for most of the game because he's a little bit better as a rusher. Andrew Dennis in the comment section, Deuce could have had a second pick on another blitz. Ross Warren, King quietly had a great game. Like James TA, I can't pronounce your last name, bro. I struggle with that. Blitz, Vandals, blitz. Like, I'm not saying send 8 on every single play here, but man, there seems to be a recipe for this defense. Yeah, you're not going to get a shutout. You're not going to hold most teams out of the end zone, but you do seem to perform better across the board in every single game when you got 4 down linemen and you're not afraid to blitz somebody once in a while and make the guy do something stupid. It's obviously a lot harder to do than it is to just say, especially as the podcaster with a beat up body that couldn't have started and played high school football anyway, because I got so many other fucking problems. But it's not rocket science here, man. Madison McCourt, engage 8. Like, again, I would love to see that every once in a while when it's needed, but just bring a little bit more pressure and keep four linemen with their fucking hands in the ground. You might be able to sneak something out of this season after all. I'm not saying this team's going to make the playoffs, but hey, maybe slipping in a winning record could happen. Even going 500 at this point, I'd feel pretty good about this team. With all, I know that this has been such a roller coaster, but ending at 500 or having a chance to be 500 at the end of the year, losing your quarterback, losing all of what's been left from the last few years, and Jason Eck like picking the pockets of Idaho on his way out. And I don't think he's gonna be able to do that with New Mexico when he goes to Wisconsin next year. But man, I'd feel pretty good about the future of this team if things continue to build off of what we saw today, with a little bit more emotion on the sidelines, a little bit more relaxed energy from the coaches, and just a simplified playbook.
Yeah, I guess another thing I want to bring up, that not on the field. You talked about the crowd size. One, our worst nightmares did not materialize with the crowd. I mean, it was certainly smaller than I would have liked. The student section was kind of worst case scenario. But the alum side showed up. The band also, I felt like they kind of put it in overdrive. So shout out to the band look, the Idaho band always kicks ass. But additionally today, it felt like as fans, not just as players, people with a job to do, which the band members have a job at the games. It felt like kicked it up into overdrive on their end. But hey, the 6,000-7,000, whatever the actual total was, it did have a little bit of a playoff vibe in the sense that there were times when the dome did actually get pretty loud. Because you get to this point, it's only diehards who are showing up. So at the very least, you are getting the people who give a shit, who are going to scream. It's not just. I'm not trying to put down old fans, because not all old fans are this way, but like there's a certain type of old fan that we all know and don't care for, like the guys who will not stand up, the guys who apparently don't exist in Missoula and Bozeman, but do in Moscow. Those type of people were not at this game. We do need those type of people to sell out the game for sure. But there was some pretty good energy in spite of how concerned you and I both were. So was it close to the best of the season? No, not at all. But after this showing, if Idaho can pick up, I mean, that game in Flagstaff, I think will matter. But we got family weekend when Davis is in town. So if Idaho can pick up a win in Flagstaff, you'd expect the energy is going to be a lot better for that next home game. So I don't know, fingers crossed. As we have said 19 million times, it's important to not take away too much from a win against a team with a coach who's trying to get fired that really, really sucks. But Idaho there's a lot of boxes you and I, Dallas, put up about, hey, these are things we hope to see checked this week in our episode previewing the game. Idaho checked a shit ton of those today.
I mean, that's all you can ask for, right? Like, yes, I had come into that episode right off of watching the Eastern game and was pretty low on this team. But man, yeah, you beat the shit out of a team that, I mean, everybody beats the shit out of for the most part, other than Eastern and Weber, who I think are, with Portland State, the three worst teams in the conference. But outside of that, we did see all the things we wanted to see. Like, there has been a bunch of growth throughout this year from obviously from the players. As you've seen, Caleb Bricks has continued to grow and is certainly the best defensive back on the team, I think, at this point. But like guys like Isaiah Bivens getting a shot and going out there and doing something with it, to just, man, remember the penalty issues the first couple of weeks and how that has really shrunk down. The coaches have really gotten this team to play some disciplined football. And now we're seeing Matt Linehan 7 games in starting to make some changes. Yeah, Thomas Ford had to influence that, but I mean, Matt Linehan's still the offensive coordinator, still involved in calling the plays. And this was the best it's looked. And if we can continue to see that grow throughout the year, Andrew Dennis in the comment section, McCraney's development has been huge. I think that's the biggest one. And now that's been with an injury that has taken him so long to get to this point. But like, there are certainly things to hold on to, that even if the next handful of weeks don't go particularly well for the Vandals, because again, they're probably not going to be favored in 3 of the 4 games. You take that aside, and there is a bunch of stuff here that is being progress. Now, we got to see more recruits coming in. Thomas Ford's first true cycle as the head coach. And I know last year was his first class, but come on, he came in at the very last minute and saved what he could. His first chance at the full transfer portal from day one to the final day. We'll see what happens with the coaching staff, if there's any adjustments made, or what players are leaving, and if there's any freshmen that hit the way Anthony Woods did his first year in the Eck era. But right now, with all of the warts we know this program has, I feel pretty good about how today went. And again, I know it's Portland State, but a lot of the things I wanted to see Idaho change and do to get a big victory like this, we saw it, and that's really encouraging for the final 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I'm still in the world of, guys, don't make things worse on yourselves than you need to. Do not worry about the playoffs until Idaho reels off 4 wins in a row, and we head into the final week against Idaho State at 6-5. If Idaho doesn't get that, that's where Idaho has to get for the playoffs to be a 1-second discussion. So please, like, I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to spend any energy worrying about that at all. What I'm going to care about is, are things moving in the right direction? Are, like we saw with the play calling on the offensive side of the ball, are guys who are getting their shot stepping up, guys like Marquand McCraney, and Nolan McWilliams. You hit on Bivens as well, and that's right. It's just where I think you got to be. I'm recalibrating to saying, hey, if I would have thought this team was a 500 team heading into the season, how do I feel about what I saw today? With that paradigm, I feel pretty damn good. With the other paradigm of, hey, like Dallas, you talked about warts. Are people in charge responding to warts and trying to get rid of what they can with the given staff, with the given roster? Because there's only so much you can change in a season. Your guys are who they are. And I feel like there's a very good chance that we're going to look back at the end of the season and say, hey, losing to Eastern was the week that things really changed for the program. Now we got to see that happen. We got to see some things. We got to see this stuff persist into the next game. So keep that in mind. But this felt like a different type of effort, both coaching staff and players wise. And the type that I don't think anyone that's a Vandal should be stepping away from this week saying anything other than this was good. You play a team like Portland State, you got your fan base really reeling off four consecutive losses. You got to kick some ass. And that's absolutely what happened today.
Mm-hmm. Could not agree more. Martin, Brian, we are over an hour in. Any final thoughts before we adjourn? Martin, the brick wall has taken you. Do you have any final thoughts? Oh, you're back.
I got nothing.
Nothing from Martin. Brian, anything you have not gotten out of your chest in the hour and 1 minute we've been here?
I'll see you guys for the Sunday show, covering the entire Big Sky Conference. And on Tuesday, Kevin Marshall from FCS Nation Radio is going to step in. Dallas bails.
Kevin's back.
Kevin's back. Dallas is bailing for another Nickelback concert. So we got to preview that Halloween game, which we purposely have not talked about a ton today because we got Tuesday. And I think we all want to kind of sit for a minute and see, how this long-term changes how we feel. But it's a good day to be a Vandal. See you guys again soon.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Tubs of the Club, guys. If you're interested in the subdue shirts, join Patreon.com/Tubs of the Club. We will get you connected with the mayors to get a subdue shirt. The proceeds are going to the 1889 Collective to try to keep some of these good Vandals here. But also, again, it's less than a cup of coffee a month to just come talk Vandal sports with a bunch of people. It's the craziest, most active game threads you could possibly imagine, especially in the Dome. It's awesome. But
if you are wondering where some of the online Tubs discourse, Vandal discourse is, a huge amount of it is within our Discord. The let's say Vandal Twitter. A lot of that is people who've moved into our Discord because you get to actually have conversation. You get to actually have a quick back and forth. So that's where that's gone. On the side note, I do hope some of the dickheads online, this is mostly the Twitter world, are ready to come back into the fold when good things happen and we learn to reassess who the actual team is. Hoping the social media for Idaho is back to being aggressive these next few weeks because it'd been kick ass for most of the year, but with that, especially with a couple of losses, they were starting to get a lot of online shit. And I hope that goes away. Assholes, they're doing their job. But two, they have been doing a great job throughout the season.
Could not agree more, Brian. Again, guys, Patreon.com/Tubs of the Club. I will tell you, Halloween night, if you're not out there with your kids trick-or-treating, that game thread is going to be popping because I don't know many people that are going to make the trip down to Flagstaff for that on a Friday night. So be there or be square. We will be back on Tuesday with Uncle Kev from FCS Nation Radio. And with that said,
go Vandals.
Go Vandals.